desde Colombia. Aurora, creo que podemos empezar, ¿eh?
I think we can begin.
Abre el micrófono.
Unmute your microphone.
Bien. Vamos a dar inicio. Bienvenidas.
We're going to begin. Welcome to all.
Ya es el momento de empezar, ya es la hora.
It is now time to begin. It is the time, as the CLAR inspiration says. We are 412 people participating at this time. They're still adding, they're still joining, so welcome. I'm going to give the floor to Yolanda, our president, the president of the Board of UISG. So I give the floor to Yolanda.
Buenos días, buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a este encuentro. Soy Yolanda, soy misionera claretiana. Es un encuentro que hemos deseado mucho y la verdad que también el quórum de las personas que se van uniendo y que nos van a seguir nos lo va a ir confirmando. Este encuentro de hoy responde a dos deseos. Un deseo, primero, de fondo, es un deseo de búsqueda, de discernimiento de lo que Dios nos dice en esta realidad que vivimos y a qué nos invita, ¿verdad? Es una realidad que nos interpela y sabemos bien que va más allá de lo que incluso ocurre y de lo que estrictamente aparece relacionado con la pandemia. Es verdad que toca todos los estamentos de la vida social, religiosa, de la vida personal, de la vida de nuestras comunidades, de la misión. Bueno, no pararía la lista, ¿verdad? Pero también pide una respuesta. Y estamos experimentando de que las consecuencias son ya en este momento son grandes y van más allá de nuestras comunidades, de nuestros institutos, pero también es un tiempo que muchos nos están invitando a vivir como un kairos. Desde el Papa Francisco, organizaciones internacionales, nos sentimos invitados como la humanidad a dar significado a lo que estamos viviendo, a lo que está aconteciendo desde una lectura creyente y también dar respuestas junto con otros. Entonces, por un lado, el deseo de búsqueda nos mueve a este encuentro. Una búsqueda humilde. Dime. I am in the off.
Okay, can you choose your channel to speak?
Yolanda.
All right, Spanish.
Okay, when you speak Spanish, choose the channel. Okay.
Entonces, ¿qué hago? ¿Repito otra vez?
Should I repeat?
Vale. Entonces, perdonen si para algún...
Forgive me if it's a repetition. I was talking about the joy that we feel in coming together and also the desire that moves us to this meeting. The first desire is like an interior desire and listening to what God is telling us and wants to transmit. It is a time to listen carefully, attentive listening. I'm hearing French. I'm speaking Spanish.
Sí, Florence, escucho el francés.
Yes, Florence, we can hear the French. Sorry, Yolanda. Can we fix it?
Okay, it's my fault. Okay, done.
Sí. Hay muchas voces que escuchamos.
There are very many voices we hear during this time, and we need to deepen this listening and the discernment that we need. But there's another desire that moves us, and I think we all agree on this. That is the desire to turn this listening, this exercise of search in a shared manner. I would almost say in a synodal manner, a path of search, which, although we hear voices and some are individual voices, we also want to hear some group voices, some choirs that enlighten our search, and we feel the need to share, to speak to each other, to listen, to hear how you read and interpret this reality from your contexts, whether you are a sociologist, a thinker, a theologian. So this meeting today is part of a series of meetings from that perspective. We had meetings with one of the conferences of the United States. We had a meeting with the Conference of Religious of Europe. Today, with much joy, we have a meeting with the presidency of CLAR. We have organized a meeting with the religious from Africa and Asia. It is an opportunity to create a virtual platform to display what we are truly seeking from the Spirit, what God is granting to us to seek the light. So this attention, this listening, this dialogue is, I believe, a humble degree of attention, because part of walking in the fog, as we do not see the horizon, but we walk with trust, with great trust, because if we seek the light, we will not miss it. And if we need courage to provide special answers, we can trust that the Lord will those to us. So again, to all those who are joining in this meeting, welcome. We wish you a good listening, and we are already saying that at the end of this series of meetings, we'd like to publish a summary, a memoir, because we do not want to lose this richness that these meetings represent. So thank you for making this meeting possible, and we can go on. I'd like to give instructions about translation again. To choose your translation language, there is a button at the bottom of your screen which reads interpretation. There, you can choose your language.
You have to click on the bottom interpretation down below. Pour sélectionner la langue, vous devez cliquez sur le bouton interprétation et choisir la langue. Per scegliere la lingua dovete andare in basso nel bottone interpretazione, per l'italiano dovete scegliere portoghese, non esiste la traduzione in portoghese. Vi chiedo anche gentilmente di non scrivere nella chat durante l'incontro se non è per motivazioni di tecniche. I invite you not to write in the chat during the meeting because it's really disturbing unless you need something or you have a problem. You can write directly to me or to Sister Florence. Les invito a no escribir en la chat durante el encuentro porque hay mucho...
Please do not send the messages via the chat during the meeting. It can be disturbing, and if you have any issues, you can send a message to me or Florence. With these instructions, technical instructions that are very important to experience this meeting from this spirit, as Yolanda was saying, that is present in each of us, in our realities, in what we are experiencing at this time. And with this desire in our hearts, desire to listen to each other, to search, to strengthen this response to our reality from the different contexts, we're going to contemplate the video that will present an important reality. The video is called Seeds of Life in the Global Parcel of the Pandemic.
Y vamos a escuchar con el corazón.
We're going to listen with our heart and with all our senses.
En este hoy de la historia,
In the today of history, aware of the pain that permeates our world, we want to stop, expand horizons, and be thankful for the commitment of religious life in Latin America and the Caribbean, for its Samaritan footprint, for its capability to expand its outlook and invent ways and paths to let life flow and to participate in gestures of solidarity and support for the more vulnerable. We cannot take away the pain and the situations of difficulty that we are experiencing because of COVID. We cannot hide criticisms from different public administration, from social and political agents because of how they are managing the situation. But along with that, we cannot hide that some goodness also exploded. The religious life in Latin America and the Caribbean is part of this flow of solidarity of life. So many gestures of closeness that taste like martyrdom and prophecy that animates us and infects us. We must risk to be creative in the midst of difficulties. We have to offer our 5 loaves and 2 fish, contemplate so many empty jars, mobilize our heart and our inside. Listen to cries and pain, care for all life, and tenderly embrace at a distance and from up close. The impact of what we are experiencing makes us recognize ourselves so that we are not affected. The mission that we've been called to with our identity as consecrated people puts us on the side of caring for fragile life and demands us to turn this situation into a true learning platform. we have to commit to the art of care, care for each other and care for those who were entrusted to us. Seek reasonable means to care without exaggerating and without minimizing, with discernment, thinking in about common good, always open to share. Religious life in Latin America and the Caribbean manages thousands of social works for those most vulnerable, for those who were abandoned by our society. Even in the midst of this pandemic, we are still on the side of those little ones, ensuring that the seeds of the kingdom will grow today with a taste of new wine. Once again, from CLAR, we want to tell stories about social projects that are filled with gospel, giving visibility during this pandemic to the path of religious life in favor of poor people. Tell stories so that gratitude can be our daily prayer. Tell stories to feel part of a territory that turns us into brothers, Latin America and the Caribbean. Tell stories to let the blood of so many martyrs run through our veins, men and women who gave it all for justice. Tell stories to continue being a testimony of a prophetic and abundant life for everyone. From our everyday Cana, we invite you once again to do what he says, is the urgency of knowing that it is time to plant seeds of life in the parcel of the kingdom where we are. We want to share seeds of new life. Share your story with us. Send us your audio, picture, text, piece of news, initiative of solidarity or video. Do it through our WhatsApp number, that's 5731566833479. Or send us a message to the email communications@clar.org. We want to listen to you. Do whatever he tells you, it is the time.
Con esta presentación,
with this presentation, we get into our meeting with the Latin American and Caribbean Confederation of Religious. At the USG, we've been maintaining this connection, and we're very happy to be able to share life, the life that you are discovering and sharing. This confederation includes 22 national conferences of religious brothers and sisters. They will present their inspiration and the reality that we want to contemplate at this specific time of this pandemic from a perspective of religious life commitment in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we want to introduce some people. I'm going to name them, and if you can please help me find them. The president is Sister Liliana Franco Echeverri from the Society of Mary. Liliana, good morning. Greetings to all. We also have Father Francisco Mendez Serrano as a Legion Father of Don Bosco, if he is here, because he seemed to be having some issues, some connection issues. I'm going to name you since you're going to speak of one of the jars. So at that point, we can see your faces. We also have Nancy, Sister Nancy Negron Ortiz. If she's there, please say, here I am. Yes, greetings to all, missionary of the Good Shepherd. And Sister Marines Castellano. Good morning.
De la Virgen Niña desde Argentina.
Sister of the Child Virgin from Argentina.
Y la secretaria general de la Confederación.
And the General Secretary of the Confederation is Sister Daniela Canavina.
De estar en contacto, Daniela.
Who's kept in touch. Good morning. From Argentina. From Colombia. From Colombia. Apologies.
Y también
also,
a la presidenta
we invited the president of the Conference of Religious of Brazil, Sister Maria Inês Vieira Ribeiro.
Buenos dias a todos. Bom dia a todos e a todas.
Gracias por estar presente.
Thank you for being here. Each will have 7 minutes, more or less. 7, because it's plenitude, to speak of your vision, of the experience you have as a conference, as a confederation in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we will begin with
con la primera, Liliana, con la primera
the
tinaja.
first one, Liliana, the first jar. I wanted to read one paragraph of what they introduce as when they present their inspirational horizon. And she says, the reality of our people and our church imposes us the challenge to listen, to attend to, with a new contemplative gaze, to attend to all those situations where something was exhausted, where it becomes necessary to look at Jesus, to place our gaze on Jesus, so that with creative fidelity, we can do what he tells us to do in his style, based on his criteria, in consistency with his options. So with this, we introduce each of our sisters. Liliana, you have the floor. Thank you. First of all, in the name and on behalf of all my brothers and the presidency, we want to send our greetings to Brother Jose Sanchez, the president of the Conference of Religion in Mexico and our companion on this path, because he cannot be with us today. I also want to thank you for inviting us to share and to resonate with this reality from Latin America and the Caribbean during this time of pandemic that has reminded us all of how vulnerable we are. This virus has changed our agendas, the pace of life. It's been like a windmill of disease that has underlined, emphasized that inequalities, especially in the health context, is a factor that increases risk for the poor. The impact of everything we've experienced has led us to recognize ourselves as a global village affected by something that was unexpected. We all feel called to get out of our individualism, to care for each other. In this context, we are struck when we see all the networks that have emerged to defend life and to attend to concrete situations. In continents such as ours, the pandemic sharpened the face of migration. of inequality and poverty. Every day we face those great cracks that make this situation more inhuman, as well as corruption and the media and triumphant positions or the politics of some governors, some leaders of our countries. These have increased the risk factors and the crisis. In this context, you are inviting us to reimagine the future. We've wanted to share what we envision based on the inspirational horizon of CLAR and the conviction that we have that it is time. During this time, we would also like to especially approach the reality of the Brazilian people and the Amazon territory in this large geography throughout the 9 countries. The first jar speaks of living our occasion with meaning. The invitation is to recuperate the evangelical centrality, to live with radicality and renewed enthusiasm in our consecration, to be authentic witnesses in following Jesus. It's about going back to the essential aspects of our following from an experience of integrated spirituality. From that experience, we should re-energize the configuration of our institutions. The first thing that we like to reimagine is that precisely at this time is when transformation is taking place. This is the favorable time for transformation. In the face of so much pain, hunger, injustice, and corruption, we are tempted to convert in promoters of fear, skepticism, and lack of hope. We easily hide behind screens, and as an audience, we just repeat the latest news in the places where we are every day. Certainly, we give detailed information about numbers, about everything we've seen and heard through so many channels of information, and on many occasions of misinformation. Without realizing, we fall into a scary story, a system that does not believe that another world is possible. In the face of the experience we've had in front of the death of our brothers and relatives, differences of states that often block our apostolic horizons, before the difficulty in carrying our projects forward, the limitations, the lack of strength, or the lack of resources in some contexts, it is possible that that information can paralyze us, the consecrated life. The statistics threaten our future. Today, more than ever, when the strength of reality, when the strength of the facts seem to not stop in their impact, we must cover ourselves with hope. We must not deny reality or interpret it based on parameters loaded with naivety, but we must read them from a perspective of faith and find reasons to move, to mobilize ourselves and organize ourselves in solidarity. In this future that we reimagine, our voice has to be at the service of the victims, of those most affected, the little ones and the sick, the solitary ones, those who require a portion of hope and joy. And in this sense, going out is a condition to conquer the future. As consecrated life, we must go out, we must leave our armchair, we must leave our screen, we must ask ourselves, question ourselves about the channels of our self-giving in a reality that requires witnesses of hope, men and women who can go beyond, go out and utter words that give life and have gestures that give faith with tenderness, with courage. This first jar is an insistence on the fact that our hope is based on Jesus. We have to contemplate him, and with him pray for this reality and approach the personal, community, national, or universal reality. That will be our way of responding to this circumstances that push us to the value of prayer, to push us to the courage that you learn with the poor, the freedom we have inherited for those who before us were capable of changing, unlearning, and transforming themselves at the pace of the Spirit in fidelity and in listening to reality. Contemplating reality and the God who's always acting opens us to hope and moves us to give life with evangelical compassion. That the time is now. Yes, the time is now, because this reality is very similar to the reality Jesus had to experience. And at this time, precisely, when everything is more difficult, when the system crushes the rights of minorities, when the sick are piled up on streets and squares, when the women are suffering injustice, that is when we feel that the time of Jesus has come, because the time of Jesus comes when the traders are in the temple with practices that are empty of meaning at paces that prevent us from listening to the cry of the little ones, as the many we've been hearing over the last few days in our continent. The time of Jesus comes where the disciples are dispersed because of the joy produced by what is superficial, and arguing about the first positions and the power that is emerging. The time of Jesus and ours comes during the intimacy of a dinner among friends, when we just offer it's an essential, when on our knees, as we've been in the United States, it is possible to caress the humanity of the other and washing the feet to embrace life. The time of Jesus comes when women are listening and engaged, and when the undecided sell their consciousness to fill their pockets. The time of Jesus comes when the night is dense, when the silence and loneliness on the street is covering everything. And this is very similar to what we experience today. That is why it is the time, and we have no doubt about this. But it is impossible to take up this path in solitude. Rethinking ourselves can only be possible with the awareness that we need the others. We need to be with others. But more importantly, we have to understand the means, the ways, and the meaning to row together in the same direction with a single mission that is offered by this jar, listening to Jesus, doing what he says, with an evidence of the most necessary prophetism, that is the prophecy of humility. It is the time, and the events of our history keep reminding us we just need to open our eyes to wake up, listen. I hope that together we can journey on this path and become ourselves on this path. And as we hear the echo of the voice of the Mother, we too must ensure that the miracle happens. This is the objective of the first jar, and that is our reinvention. Thank you, Liliana. We're now going to listen to Sister Maria Inés, who will speak of the second jar, be abundant in Trinitary spirituality. This jar about deepening the spirituality invites us to deepen the mystery of love, unity, and diversity. And consecrated life is the image and the icon. The relationship with Trinitary love leads to support, to finding support, strength in a fraternal life, and being sent to the peripheries. I can hardly hear her. She's breaking up. During this time of pandemic, we've been living inside our doors, having a strong experience of fraternal life. We shared prayer meetings focused on the word. We went back to what is essential. We had more time for dialogue or longer conversations to expand our relations, recognizing the gifts and values of our brothers and sisters, the compassionate gestures based on tranquility, vulnerability, fear. We recognized ourselves as different. We are called to live the day with and from Trinity, passionate about the kingdom. We are invited to a life of itinerance and of going forth to creatively go toward the brother who is in need and to humanize them and us, immersed in this circular love, allowing life to emerge. There are three verbs that are interrelated and mark this dynamism: renew, revalue, resignify. Renew our relations from the being, from the staying, being in contact with what is essential, with the word, which placed at the center of our life is transforming from within, from what is deep within, from that experience of feeling like children loved by God, loved amongst us, joyful witnesses of mercy, presence of hope and trust, to stay in contact with the mystical and prophetic dimension of our founders, that will help us to revive the charism in the heart of all of us, the charism that we are called to. This staying requires an attitude of listening to the word and the reality where we are, the cries, with one ear to the gospel, one to the people, in attentive listening to each person, to be creative in our self-giving, our donation, our services and attention, and thereby find the way to reach out to the heart of each person with tenderness, simplicity, through small gestures that are liberating. To revalue our relations from a discernment standpoint, religious, lay people, generating gratuitous spaces, sharing experiences of faith and life, generating processes to favor conversion, transformation, and a progressive change, with a contemplative look from men and women of faith. Discover, read, interpret, discern the signs of the time, the passage and the footprint of God in everyday life, allowing ourselves to be led by the Spirit, thereby finding new paths of charity and design a common project of fraternity so that all together we can navigate in the same direction. Each one from the place where he or she is called to contribute. It's a small grain of sand, living in sobriety, austerity, simply and in solidarity with responsibility and generosity, in an intergenerational, intercultural, intercongregational, interdisciplinary dialogue, and always betting on a new lifestyle that combines gratuitousness, humility, joy, and peace and serenity. We signify our relations from the going out of ourselves, the comfort zones, setting aside the complaints, the conformity, and the fears to go towards the other, to accompany and help those in painful situations or vulnerable situations. This invites us to mature a spirituality of global solidarity that comes from this. We need this. We cannot do this alone. We are called to tear down the walls of hatred, individualism, self-reference, the ego, and pride, to be builders of bridges, valuing the contribution of each. We are all on the same boat, and we let ourselves be led by the breath of the love of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And from that experience of love, from this renewal, revaluing, and resignifying, it is time to be prophets of hope with audacity, courage, and bravery to announce that something new is emerging, is breaking up in our heart, that fear, lack of hope, she's breaking up. The light that renews all things. Let us live with hope. Let us sow hope. Thank you. We now continue with this attentive listening. We are filling our jars. We now listen to Sister Nancy Negron, who will speak about walking toward a new way of being church. Thank you, Nancy. Imagining the future of religious life, dreaming as God dreams of us. It pushes us to walk toward a new way of being church. The third interpretation of our horizon, of our inspirational horizon. During this time of quarantine, physical distancing, this time has allowed us to stay on the boat, taking up our own challenges during this unprecedented moment. The words of Pope Francis have become for all a source of hope and places us in front of the commitment we must face. We have to discern and find the pulse of the Spirit to push along with others the dynamics that can provide a testimony and channel the new life that the Lord wants to generate during this concrete moment of history. This is the favorable time of the Lord, who asks us to not conform ourselves, not be satisfied, nor justify ourselves with substitution logics that prevent us from facing the impact and the serious consequences of what we are experiencing. Discern, find, and push forward, generate, give witness, take up, analyze life based on the pulse of the Spirit. We must allow each of these words rest in our hearts for some seconds. Emotions are awakened in me. Throughout his pontificate, Pope Francis has expressed challenging words as the previous ones to mobilize us and prevent us from being paralyzed in the light of fear that can bring out this complicated reality we are called to live and that we are called to respond to as disciples, as missionary disciples, with our eyes set on Jesus as a church that is setting forth. That is why he calls to a vitality that generates unity and communion as an integrating force. We are one. We are all called to row together. If we act as one people, even in the face of other pandemics that are threatening, then we can achieve a real impact. Consecrated life has to be an echo of the dreams of the ideal of a communion that configured the consciousness of Jesus and his way of proceeding. May all be one like your Father. You are in me and I in you. They too are to be one in us so that the world can believe. Act as one people to really achieve a real impact. That is a huge challenge that we are called to take up, to respond to the consequences the pandemic is leaving behind. Act as a single people. That will show us the way, a model of church as people of God, a synodal church which promotes and wants to be strengthened by Pope Francis, because that is where one of his deepest convictions lies, the path to synodality. That is the path that God expects of the church. As we were told by our sister Liliana during an editorial of the CLAR magazine, this way of being church is to renounce self-reference and presupposes to set ourselves walking forth, recognizing the need for complementarity and accepting all the diversity of charism that are enriching for the church. None of this can be possible unless we exercise the mysticism of the us and the active listening that leads to an authentic conversion. Latin American and Caribbean religious life pushed us to walk to a new way of being church. Little by little, step by step, in CLAR, we've been working so that all the instances where we carry out our mission and where we are inserted as permanent secretary, the commissions, national conferences, may reveal the face of a synodal church where there is room for everyone. From our Latin American and Caribbean reality, we invite all religious men and women, wherever they are, to fill life with synodality in all its aspects and dimensions. Preach and promoting a church in collaboration demands a change of mentality in people as the way to proceed, so that we can truly begin a participation, making the axiom of the Church of the First Millennium effective. What affects all must be treated and dealt with by all. So the name of the church, the name of the community will be to walk together. It will be a synod. This logic of synodality will fill our mission with meaning. It will become a testimony that will transform humanity, and with its mysticism, the jars will be filled with words, life, and prophecy, because it is time.
Muchas gracias, Nancy,
Thank you, Nancy,
por este compartir.
for this sharing.
Sabemos que algunas veces no
We
es
know
buena
that
la señal,
sometimes the
hace comprender
signal is not that good, and this
realidades.
makes us understand our different realities as well.
Escuchar
We are now going to listen to Father Francisco Méndez.
Padre, tiene que abrir el micrófono.
su micrófono
Your
está
microphone is muted.
Tiene que abrir. Muy bien.
Sí.
Padre, ha selezionato l'idioma bajo, sì?
Aquí no aparece en este momento la opción aquí. No aparece en este momento la opción de
I do not see the option.
los tres puntos, no me aparece.
Padre, es muy difícil
It
escuchar
is
bien.
very difficult. It's a difficulty in the connection.
Creo que tiene que apagare
I think you must switch off your video.
Ok. Ok, hemos apagado el video, ¿se escucha mejor?
No, no muchísimo, pero bueno.
Ok, bueno, saludos a todos, ojalá pueda llegar algo.
Hello, I hope you can get something of what I want to share.
No, no es
La
posible.
cuarta clave de
No.
No, it's not possible.
desde la cuarta clave de todo inspirador.
Padre, no es posible porque no se escucha nada.
Contemplativa de la realidad.
Padre, lo siento mucho, pero no se escucha y es imposible para la traductora
No,
traducir.
we
Entonces,
cannot hear. So let's wait until the end to see if the connection improves. We give the floor to the next speaker and we'll wait for a moment. So we're going to give the floor to Sister Maria Inés. Good morning and good morning to all. I hope I can speak slowly so that you can all support and accompany the reflection. I am very thankful for the initiative of the UISG to listen to us as a religious life in Latin America. We are living an unusual time, very difficult for our reality. That is suffering and living a crisis in all sense. Health, financial, social, political. No country is free from this global crisis we are experiencing. We can say that our continent is experiencing a situation that is unexpected for our human life. Our continent is, our continent includes the Amazon. In Brazil, 67% of the Amazon is in our country, and it is experiencing a very serious situation because our political leaders are taking advantage of the pandemic to destroy this great nature, this great environment of nature. Therefore, this fifth jar helps us and will help us reflect on the ethics of the needy and the care. Firstly, we can say that during this time of teaching and prophetic service of Pope Francis for our consecrated life, it has learned to even more to be poor, sensitive, in proximity, welcoming, a place of mercy and compassion, focused on the person of Jesus, in solidarity, increasing solidarity with the poor, with those who suffer, a consecrated life independently from this time of pandemic that goes to the encounter of those who suffer most, to those who are most vulnerable. A consecrated life that respects the dialogue with those who are different. A consecrated life of the Second Vatican Council. A consecrated life of Pope Francis that welcomes the sheep, who hears the sound of the sheep. A consecrated life that is increasingly fermenting society and that generates life among the poor. We must not be concerned about our numbers, our growing old. In Latin America, religious life is a great sign of hope. And since we live, how do we live this time of pandemic, of social isolation and suffering? For instance, we can go back to Jesus. He asked, what do you want? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do for you? At this time of pandemic, we see that this word of Jesus, what do you want, is precisely our response is precisely this one: globality, reality, vitality of care. How many testimonies are we seeing in Latin America? Some actions of solidarity, shared gestures, life that was given during this time. These are numbers, and we cannot even list them all. In our country, recently, we listed 250 initiatives of consecrated life for the whole country. Initiatives to attend to health, to initiatives of prevention, of distribution of materials, and mainly actions of initiatives of solidarity, distribution of food, because many people who lost their jobs no longer had anyone. Sister, you have to speak a mixture of Portuguese and Spanish, otherwise it'll be very difficult to translate. You have to try to speak a little Spanish. I'm sorry. It is very difficult for us. Are there translators for Spanish? No, we already said this. There's no translation into Spanish. You have to try to speak Spanish with some words in Portuguese, but not everything in Portuguese. Please, I hardly speak any Spanish. I understand it, but I don't speak it. So let's continue with our reflection. The care for us, the care is an essential way of living. It is more than an attitude. From the standpoint of existence, the care is I'm hearing the translation. Before any situation of the human being, we find attitudes and situations. Excuse me, there's a technical issue. We have a problem with the translation.
Dos veces y dos voces y no se puede entender bien. Perdona.
¿Podemos continuar?
Hermana, ustedes están en la sala de español, ¿verdad?
Sí, 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 sí.
¿Podemos seguir, Florence?
Mia colpa.
Ok, pueden, hermana, perdón.
Podemos dizer que o cuidar, o cuidado,
we can say that the care is at the root, at the initial root of the human being. Before anything is done, caring is part of human nature. And it is always accompanied by life, it's always caring. It means to recognize care as a way of being, an essential way of being, always present, something that cannot be reduced to any previous reality. Without caring, the person stops being human. It is a way of structuring ourselves and a way to be known. Without care, the human being stops being human. If we do not receive any care from the birth to death, the person is destructured. That is why we perceive that at this time of pandemic, by a fragile physical situation, the human being is destructured emotionally, psychologically, socially, and financially. The entire global dimension of care is part of that when it comes to caring for an infected person, a hospitalized person, the members of the family who lose a beloved person. So for us, for consecrated, like for us Christians, we can say that care is present in every single situation. We can respond, we can increasingly respond to the questions of a human being. What do you want me to do? That is Jesus's question. Our response is this one: what are you going to do? To be cured, and to be cured, I wish to be cured, I desire to be cured, not just physically, but also psychologically, socially, and financially. So this reality deeply touches us, and we see that the dimension of care is part of the prophecy of consecrated life. We finally, we can consider this call of Jesus for each of us. You will be my witnesses. The question of Jesus is, what do you want me to do? We can place consecrated life as a prophet of mercy. The prophecy of consecrated life becomes a testimony, and we go back to the most necessary question for all men and women at this time. What do you want me to do? To receive care, to receive gestures of solidarity, gestures of humanity, gestures of life that heal, to heal my soul and my body. Jesus' reaction was immediate. I want you to be healed. I want you to be healed. My brother, my sister, I want you to be free of this epidemic, of this pandemic that is impacting our humanity. So, brothers and sisters, that is how our consecrated life in Latin America is experiencing this moment. The prophecy of mercy, the prophecy of care, a prophecy of global attention to urgent needs for our poor and our people. In this situation that makes us very vulnerable in all the aspects, we trust in God's grace and Mary's protection so that we can soon see a better future, because we will not be the same after this pandemic. The Holy Spirit is leading us to be more caring, to be a way of caring in consecrated life. Thank you very much. Thank you for your precious effort to share what you have in your heart and in the heart of everyone. You've talked a lot about care, about mercy, and about the fact that Jesus wants to heal us. Thank you, because this is the time to experience this. We thank you very much. And technically it was not possible to have an additional translation channel. We are sorry that we cannot have this translation from Portuguese into Spanish and all the languages. You've made a huge effort. The message came through because it's like the spirit. What comes from the spirit reaches the spirit. Thank you for your effort and your sharing. We now go to Sister Daniela. Was somebody speaking? Yes. I want to apologize because I could have prepared it in Spanish and read it in Spanish, but I had no time to do that. It's okay. Thank you so much. What you've done is great, and we've taken that into our hearts. We now listen to Sister Daniela. Good morning, and thank you very much for this sharing. I'm going to address the sixth jar of CLAR, which invites us to a clear option for integral ecology. We are witnesses of the fact that our humanity is at risk because of a virus. It had and has, because in Latin America we are still in confinement. We had the experience of precisely being confined in our homes and as religious life in our life communities. The same humanity, and I'm going to transfer this term to religious life, is challenged by this world crisis, and this has generated many reflections. At this time of pandemic, our economic and social processes have been very affected and have been subject to great tensions, but at the same time, they appeared resilient as far as their relationship with the environment. And as Joaquin Mal, the director of environmental sustainability in Caracas, says that it is very likely that once the crisis is over, the emergencies to reactivate the economy and to go back to social normalcy may require reestablishment of the mechanisms and processes that affected the planet's sustainability will bring us to recover the pace of that affects our ecosystem and everything that generates the contamination of the environment. So we have to pay a lot of attention. So today we need more than ever this sixth jar to be able to fill it with water. So we have to put through our heart this need of promoting the recognition and the sacredness of what is created, the mutual interdependence among all the creatures. We have to recognize that refrain that accompanies us. Everything is interconnected. Everything is related. Everything is woven with everyone and in each of us. At the same time, each of us makes the difference to what is perceived in reality. We also must put through our heart the need to favor our personal, social, and ecological harmony, always in defense of life, of our peoples and cultures. A single cause that helps us go through the coordinates of our geographical limits and institutional ones, the only cause for which we can all dedicate our soul and heart. And we must also go back to deepening ecological knowledge to be reconciled and strengthened in this communion, which requires a deep interior and personal conversion. This conversion must take place. We must make things happen, and we must be placed in a respectful position before the ecosystems, and we have to stimulate life in our common home. I think we have to wake up to these 4 conversions. The final document of the synod spoke of pastoral, ecological, synodal conversion that are reflected in the 4 dreams that Pope Francis has given to us in his exhortation, Dear Amazonia, a dream that is social, cultural, ecological, and ecclesial. I'd like to recall with a look that captures the providential passage of God during this time of coronavirus, what we have experienced. During this time, we have celebrated the 5 years of Laudato Si. We've celebrated the opening of the Laudato Si year, along with this proposal from the dicastery to promote the experience of 7 objectives during 7 years, giving to religious life some elements to design programs and to include the cry of the earth, cry of the poor, the review of the economy, the lifestyle that have to be austere and simple, ecological spirituality, the community commitment, and active participation into common causes that affect into all our communities. We also celebrated on June 5th the World Environmental Day, and this recollection, these events in the midst of a pandemic help us as religious life to feel pilgrims in our common home and custodians of the same, care without appropriating ourselves with it. In order to save our common home, we need a revolution from the bottom, as Pope Francis says. So there's no room for superiority and combinations. This makes us also reflect on the fact that integral ecology is challenging our lifestyles in governance and animation. Therefore, we must help ourselves to work, to network, to think collectively based on the paradigm of synodality, knowing that any choice, as small as it may be, will always make a difference. If we get together as religious life, we can truly collaborate to reverse this path that is leading to the destruction of our common home. Ultimately, that is our destruction. So based on this introduction, I would like, along with the presidency, along with the entire Latin American religious life, I'd like to offer 4 points to reimagine that future. What could our contribution be for religious life? A first point can be to hearten our domestic scenarios so that we can flourish some itineraries that animate and raise the question, what can we do in our religious houses to experience this conversion process that Laudato Si requires? And one more thing, convert, transform our religious houses into true homes, which demands us to restore the ties with our brothers and sisters and to be aware that our domestic place is really an ecological place. A second point, to reimagine the future, could Laudato Si, it's an invented word, that is to recover this capability to praise, to learn to take care of ourselves. We must always be permeated with the cause of the poor and the care for our common home. There's a third element in order to reimagine ourselves that could include a more holistic vision that can help us to look at everything and not just one part. And this holistic view must invite us to review our lifestyles, our mental models, our spirituality, a spirituality with a cordial taste, processed through eco-sensitive intelligence that brings an experience of admiration of everything that surrounds us, and where everything becomes an epiphany, a manifestation of the mystery, and not just through words of prayer that is rooted into liturgy, rather freeing the spirit to and not boxing it in. So we are invited to a transforming contemplative experience that must bring a religious life that feels part of a whole. We should avoid what is dualistic, and this leads and intertwines this spirituality from the bottom up that marks our way of being and feeling. My heart will celebrate and pray what my feet are stepping on. I'm paraphrasing Leonard Boff because my head thinks about what my feet step on. So we should avoid being a disincarnated, disembodied religious life, victims of a disembodied spirituality. Let's give room to liturgies that emerge from life, from contemplative silences and the reality that twins us with the entire creation through its pains and birthing pains. A fourth point that can help us imagine the future would be to recover the meaning of what it means to be administrators, stewards, never owners. Try to place these words into our hearts. Do not retain, do not own. There are very many people here with a Franciscan spirituality with no owning. Therefore, our vow of poverty can be translated today from this jar, from this object, or into ecology, into support for a just cause that prevents exploitation, that protects everything that surrounds us, through a vow that is a vow of solidarity, so that we become in solidarity to the extent we feel uncomfortable with all the needs that we see. And this will imply, I will say for second or third time, this will demand us to review our lifestyles and our economies. And I want to close with a few words from a former CLAR secretary, Sister Josefina Castillo, who says, "Let us begin by straightening and healing the environment of our own heart, to then care for the environment of the other, with attitudes of respect, of acceptance, solidarity, especially those who are poor and fragile, those most vulnerable. heal our heart so that our social environment can be healed. A program for life. These are just ideas, and we can continue building together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to each of you. We know that we could not listen to Father Francisco. We have a few minutes to share. Patricia will also help us with this. I see on the chat that there's a lot of echo. They raise their hands to indicate they want to participate. We are thankful for this richness and for these hints, these lights that help us move forward. So we're going to open up, we're going to dedicate a few minutes to share, be that through the chat or opening the microphones. But I think that I'm going to look at those who want to participate perhaps with a question or a comment. We have about 10, 15 minutes maximum to have an exchange, to share. Aurora, it is very difficult to give the floor because we are over 800 people on Zoom and almost 300 on the Facebook Live. This is already a response. But if you want to ask a question through the chat, I can read it in the 4 language and in Portuguese. We'll try. They are asking to share the reflection you've written. I don't know if you can send it to us and if we can publish it. Gladly. And Father Francisco tells me that he is connected. We can try.
A ver, el Padre Francisco, vamos a escucharlo.
Francisco, I cannot unmute him because I can't find him.
Sí, está silenciado porque abría el micrófono, solo que no lo encuentro.
He's muted.
No lo veo. ¿Estás ahí? Está. Francisco, estaba antes. Flo, ¿puedes quitar mi waiting room, por favor? Porque no logro hacer todo.
Y en cuanto a los textos, con mucho gusto.
With regard to the texts, yes, I will send them to you. I am here. Can you hear me? Thank you for these minutes. Anyhow, as the etiquette requires, ladies first. I wanted to share something very brief. For the center of this 4th key of interpretation, the 4th jar is obviously the poor and a contemplative look toward them. I will comment very briefly. This interpretation defines and identifies what religious life is in the world, the center of religious life and the prophecy, because it is the same center as the gospel. When it comes to the option for the poor from a perspective of love, if we imagine this, we should say that firstly, the current social changes are asking us to sharpen that contemplative look. Certainly, we have to search for meaning for those excluded who are occupying the last space before the pandemic and those who occupy it now. Of course, they might still be the same, but the great majority now discover ourselves defenseless in the face of this situation. There's a new way of looking at them. There's a more humanizing look. In many cases, the barriers are coming down, and through concrete gestures of solidarity, closeness, humanity, and greater compassion. I think we can see all these elements. We also give testimony of this new humanizing attitude that is considering the humanity of the person, the exercise of politics, even the exercise of power. There are situations in countries where there have been very generous gestures. The people affected were cared for. Humanity has realized how vulnerable it is and the importance of betting on defending life. Although there's some benefits, social benefits, but there's something very real that humanity is looking for the cause. The origin of this pandemic can lead to conflicts, as we've heard. We can also acknowledge that these positive signs, there's been a great importance in Pope Francis's attitude. He insisted on recognizing ourselves as people and seeing ourselves as victims in the same calamity, travel companions in difficult times. But there are questions that still accompany us, and I'm saying this very simply. For instance, the inequality that existed to this date when it comes to health. Will it still be a monopoly of the most developed countries? The most genuine human sensitivity would call for a change.
Nos están pidiendo si puede un poco.
Well, they're asking us if you can speak a little more slowly. We have little time, but we have difficulty in following you. Thank you, Father. We could present a situation like this. If we have a cure for this pandemic, it will become a new business for the great multinational pharmaceutical, or would it be a great opportunity to attend to the sick humanity? This is a question we could raise, we could ask. Obviously, this is something that humanity is going to have to respond to. So will the situation become a business or an opportunity to change the face of humanity in the face of those who are excluded or poor? We know that religious life is also striving in the health area among the sick and the poor. There's great presence of religious life, at least here in Latin America and the Caribbean. We feel that the religious are also experiencing these situations. We raise our voices so that there may be a new sensitivity in the world. Christ will still reveal himself in the sick and the last ones and the unprivileged. And this will not happen unless we change our outlook on the poor. I dare to mention 3 elements or 3 ways of reimagining ourselves as religious life in light of the situation that we are experiencing, and with this interpretation of renewing this commitment for the poor. So the first, a religious life which more than ever must build bridges among those who are poor and those who are impoverished. It is an important commitment to not abandon those who are already socially abandoned. Imagine new alliances in favor of those who have no way of facing situations such as this pandemic. This is a great challenge for religious life and for humanity. Religious life feels capable of being valid mediators who are credible and willing to achieve this mission with a true evangelical spirit, to serve as a bridge among the less privileged and those who are most privileged. Secondly, religious life must continue proclaiming that we want to be children of God, but in the conditions as children of God and not in conditions of extreme poverty or vulnerability. This is a conquest, it's a horizon that must push us to fight, a passion that must not die. It should give more meaning to our faith experience. This fight, this struggle with no privileges, living in poverty. A third element that is also a way of reimagining ourselves in this context is as follows. A religious life that becomes a weaver, a seamstress of this broken social text. It becomes a needle, it becomes a thread, a fabric. It gives itself entirely so that an order may be recovered and so that the gospel is more visible. The abundant life that the Lord promises is increasingly a horizon that must be followed. Here we see all the ecological weave, what is necessary. There's another element that I need to share.
Muchísimas gracias, Padre Francisco. Es
Thank
realmente
you.
enriquecedor,
It is truly enriching.
fortalece.
It strengthens us. There are very many comments that are appearing on the chat. And as Patricia was saying,
Podremos hacer un intercambio,
through the chat,
unos
we can
minutos
perhaps
al
share for a
respecto,
few minutes.
leer algunos.
Mira, Aurora, todo,
A ver.
aquí están muchísimos
There are
comentarios.
very many comments, and on Facebook more than 230. And all of them resonate with what the speakers said. Some spoke of the ecology, some spoke of the reconfiguration of religious life in Latin America, the financial issues. Some said that these meetings are a balm for life. I think there are no questions. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of life. So I suggest, I don't know what you believe. I think we could close this circle before we give the floor to Emilia and Pat with a challenge for a near future, only one future to be shared. Okay, so is it clear? We want to close this moment, conclude this moment with the challenge for Latin America, one challenge. What would you say this challenge is for all, according to all those who spoke, to all the speakers? We can follow the same order. We will begin with Liliana, or I don't know who feels ready.
Francisco.
Francisco, did you want to say? No, there's a technical issue. So Liliana.
Esta conciencia que tenemos los religiosos
This consciousness we have us religious about this being the time. This encourages the challenge to work together. I think this is the greatest challenge. There is no room for protagonism, for isolated protagonists. There's no room just within our own community. This is the time to walk in common. We have the same the same view on reality. There's migration, corruption, there's an inadequate use of the goods of the earth. There's a commitment on some leaders to put an end to cultures, and in the face of these common challenges, we also have the great challenge to come together, to defend life, to walk together, to establish networks, to work for synergy, for synodality, for a collective construction. If we get together, if you unite, we have a potentially better response to these challenges. What we are experiencing today throughout the continents encourages a call to walk like brothers and to truly work for the world of the brothers. María Inés, one challenge.
Sí.
Sí, se escucha, hermana.
We can hear you, sister.
Sí, se escucha. Partiendo de la misma tina.
Okay. Based on the same jar to deepen this Trinitary quality, one challenge is to be a prophecy of hope in the community, because at the source of the Trinity as a mystery in relations, a mystery of love that goes toward the other, but in a community, the prophecy of community, the prophecy of hope. Thank you. Very concrete. Nancy, we listen to you.
Sí, uno de los es dejar que el Espíritu transforme nuestros temores en audacia y en
transform our
profecía.
fears into audacity and prophecy.
¿Me escucho?
Can you hear me?
¿Se escucha?
Yes, we hear you.
Sí, dejar que el Espíritu
Allow the
transforme
Spirit to
nuestros miedos
transform our
y surja en
fears
nosotros la
so
osadía y la
that
valentía.
courage may emerge in us.
Estoy aquí, si me escuchan.
Right, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. I think that an interesting challenge for everyone is to truly be what we are, to be religious life with the full extension of this word, without keeping anything, without being fearful, without letting our identity be taken by the situation, to be what the Lord called us to be. I think this is a huge challenge. María Inés.
Hola, gracias. ¿Escucha?
Can you hear me?
Para mí, los desafíos.
For me, the challenges, I can list them in 4 very brief points. The first challenge, in my view, is to become increasingly aware that the way of being of consecrated life is to be care, to become aware of that globality, the globality of care. Secondly, become aware and perceive our geopolitics. Latin America is an entire one suffering from the same situations and crises, as the sister Liliana said. Third, perceive that the recovery of the peripheries and the little ones of the original poor, the Black population, the workers, these are those who shared life the most, those who believe in life. Fourth, invest, give strength to the wisdom of the divine goodness. Thank you.
Mi desafío tiene un título y luego
My
algo más.
challenge has a title and something more. The challenge for a religious life to liberate the imagination as a feast of meaning. This means to give meaning to each of our practices and actions, to dare to get out of formats that only give a partial view of reality, to acquire a critical view before so much pain, and to always accompany this with three questions: for what, from where, and for whom do we do what we do? And around the jar of the option for the care of our common home, the great challenge is to Laudato Si' the domestic scenarios.
Muchas gracias. Verdaderamente es unos desafíos
Thank you.
que nos quedan
These are challenges that remain with us,
y la fuerza
and we rely
y
on the
energía
spirit
que sí se
and
percibe.
the strength and energy we perceive here. We are now going to give the floor to Brother Emili
Turú, que es
Turu. He is the Secretary for the Union of Superior Generals. Emili? Good afternoon. Good morning. The final words are especially to give thanks in the name of the USG for the participation of all, for the participation of the presidency of CLAR with their interventions. If I may, I will share my own summary through two images. The first image is what I take home. It is what Liliana shared. Behind her as she spoke, there was the icon of Trinity. To me, that summarizes what was said this afternoon or this evening. It speaks of a center, Trinity as a center within a circle of love, of dynamism and strength. And we are actually collaborators. We are accomplices of the Trinity in what we do. We're not the main characters. This is a Trinity that expands. This is a strength and an energy that is going forth and that carries us. And it is the mystery of that Trinity that is one in fraternity. So we insisted on the fact that we are all there with all diversity, and the best Trinity is the best expression of maximum diversity and unity. I even found something of ecology, because you may recall that this icon underlines Trinity, and then there is a bent tree, and even a mountain. It's a dynamism of love that drags all creation. That is my first image, Trinity, which is the center. The other image was suggested when we spoke of a new model of church, and it is the apron. The apron. There's an Italian bishop who passed away, Monsignor Tonino Bello. He spoke of the church of the apron, because he said it is the only liturgical instrument that Jesus used. He wore the apron, he got on his knees and washed the feet. This is what we discussed today, a church that gets on its knees and that starts washing feet, a church with mercy that is the best image of care, because it touches with tenderness. And since it's on its knees, it looks from the bottom, it looks at reality from the bottom. So that is an expression of a new way of being church, something we contribute to church and society. I think it is the way of being a Marian church with a Marian face, Trinity and apron. So those are the two images I want to share. Thank you very much to all of you for your participation. Thank you, Emily. We will now give the floor to close this time. We're going to give the floor to Pat, our secretary, our executive secretary at UISG. Pat.
Thank you. I will speak in English. I will add my words to that of Brother Emili. I want to take up just the image that really struck me was the image of being a seamstress or a tailor. And the idea that with the needle and the thread, we make a new fabric. And we're making that new fabric within religious life and within religious life in the world as we serve people. And that creates, if you like, a beautiful weaving of color and threads. And a conversation like this, which is held across all our many cultures across the world, as we listen to each other, as we reflect, as we contemplate from our own points of view and our own contexts, we are pushed to new horizons. And we are challenged to this global dimension of care and of mercy and of goodness. And we're being called on to respond through liturgies that respond to life, to live our vows that are deeply enculturated, and that are vows of solidarity with and among those whom we live, who in turn change us and are calling us to a new way of being religious. And in that spirit, I think we look for the synergies across our world. We look for the solidarity. We look for the ways in which we can build these global networks, which will say no to corruption, which will say no to exploitation. And I think there was a word really of calling to us so that we prevent this time of pandemic from becoming a business for many, but instead that it's a time of true transformation at the personal level for each of us across the world, a transformation in our small local communities, and then a transformation at national and international level. And this calls us to be the sign of hope, the witnesses, prophetic witnesses of God's love in this world. So we're deeply grateful to the stimulation that each of these of the speakers has given to us. In a way, you're calling us to self-examination, no matter where we are in the world. And we're grateful to you for stimulating our reflection and for calling us to a deeper contemplation of who we are meant to be, where we're meant to be, and how we're meant to be, with gratitude.
Gracias, Pat. Pues,
thank you, Pat. I want to once again thank all the executive board of CLAR, to all those who participated. I want to thank the translators who made all this effort, Carla, Ilaria, and Marilu, as well as Patricia, Florence, who help us with the technical issues. They are asking whether we're going to have the texts that were shared. Yes, we will. We're also recording this conference so that you can go back to it once more. I think there are very many elements that will help us continue this transformation in this synodal church, in to be together, to journey together in this deep contemplation as we speak of this, as the Inspiring Horizon says, it is the time. It is now the time to bring this meeting to an end and go back to our realities, wherever we are. So thank you very much. Be attentive, pay attention to the UISG page. We continue offering webinars, and we want to continue helping you along this path with this strong call from the Spirit for religious life in all world contexts. So thank you to each of you. Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias a Aurora por moderar el encuentro. Gracias, Aurora.
Thank you, Aurora, for being the moderator of the meeting. Thank you, Aurora.
Gracias a todos, toda la presidencia.
Oh, thank you.
Saludos a todos.
Gracias desde Colombia.
De Guatemala, saludos.
Chile.
Gracias de Guatemala.
De México.
Muchas gracias.
Bye bye.
De Nicaragua.
Gracias. Buen día.